Good afternoon and welcome to TalkSports, our weekend program where we, discuss with the movers and shakers and sports, the sportsmen, the sportswomen, coaches, administrators, just about everyone who involved in sports, directly or indirectly. Well, as indicated, our program this weekend will have an assessment of the just concluded CARIFTA Games in the Bahamas, and certainly some of the high and lows of the games. What do you think was some of the high points, the low points? What are some of the best practices? What you think that Grenada, the lessons you said that Grenada probably will learn from, so that some of these things should not be repeated in 2024 when Grenada hosts the next edition of the games. As you recall, Grenada secured the bid to host the 2024 CARIFTA Athletic Championships. It's the third time in the history of Grenada. The first time was in 2000 and 2016, and then for 2024. Well, to recall, Grenada should have hosted the games back after 2000, should have hosted it somewhere around 2004, 2005, but because of Hurricane Ivan, Tobago was able to host the games, and then Grenada got it in 2016 with the renaming of the stadium and all these sort of things back then. So here we are now for 2024. Grenada getting ready to host the Junior CARIFTA Games, but a big discussion, or some of the big discussions, sadly though, the achievements and performances of these athletes were overshadowed by some of the controversies and some of the incidents that took place during the CARIFTA Games. Well, as usual, my co-host is in Toronto. That's Rudian Silva. He will join me for a couple minutes, and we will discuss some of the issues. We'll hear from you as well, and we'll have some of the discussions that we will put out there in case you missed it earlier in the week, some of the discussions. So let me say good afternoon to Rudian. Rudian, good afternoon to you.
Hey, Michael, good evening to you and to the listeners out there.
Yeah.
How you doing, man?
Yes, I'm fine. And as indicated, I don't know if you were able to pick up some of the highlights of the CARIFTA Games, but as indicated, we are looking at a sort of assessment of the CARIFTA Games. So obviously there will be some high points, low points, some things that you saw, some things that you like, and certainly overall what you thought about this edition of the CARIFTA Games in the Bahamas.
It was a wonderful event. The athletes came out.
When you say wonderful in terms of competition?
In terms of competition, the athletes came out and they performed.
All right.
And we definitely will discuss about the issues that we've seen that take place, the disappointments. But in terms of competition, the athletes perform, and for our fellow Grenadians, they have make us proud. So I certainly can say that they have definitely make us proud, and I'm looking forward to 2024. Like I said, it's something big that is happening, and it's like day after day you hear something is about to happen next year in Grenada. So Michael, I think we got to be in Grenada. I think this show ought to be coming live from Grenada next year, because that might be the place to be. But certainly, it was, like I said, I'm extremely proud of our athletes, and it shows that we are moving forward with track and field. What I would mostly like to see, seeing this is CARIFTA is like the major track and field events in the Caribbean.
It is.
And I would like to see us see those in the position in Grenada to put more into it.
Yeah.
By having more athletes, having the time to do it. And again, the one thing that me and you talk about, and we're going to discuss it, is where's our strong point in the events, and how do we move forward in terms of betting it and getting the athletes ready for those events. and everything comes with funding or coaching or something in that
Yeah,
field, right?
the
And
resource.
that's exactly what the resource
Yeah,
to help them move forward. I think that's really what we need to focus on. You identify the athletes, identify those who could make that landmark for Grenada on the CARIFTA stage, and let us put the time into them, put the work into them, put the funding into them that necessarily, and let us make them better athletes and be more proud of for Grenada.
yeah. Well, I want to agree with in terms of the resources. I think an important aspect of all that you talk about there is the allocation of the resources. It means, therefore, that the parent body, which is Grenada Athletic Association and all its stakeholders, the Ministry of Sports, sponsors, etc. And by the way, in all that conversation, we must include the schools, because that's the
Most
core.
definitely.
Yeah, that's the core
Most definitely.
of our
Yeah.
junior athletes, right?
Yeah,
Um,
most definitely. Because as we can go back to that, like, again, we're going back to the same thing. Our intercolor, as we call it, is our biggest major sport in Grenada.
right.
Um, so that's where more have to be in, more time. There is discussion, maybe extending to one extra day. There's discussion in terms of adding more events. Events that you see in the CARIFTA Games should be in our intercourse.
All right. So let me say good afternoon to Edwin Sam in New Jersey, and also Roger Duncan. And a nice segue, Roger. Good afternoon to you. Happy Easter, everyone. Our first program since Easter. Um, and Rudian, it's important, and I'm glad Roger is on too, because Roger comes from the um, Grenada Cooperative Bank,
Yeah.
which has been supporting track and field in particular, sports as a whole, but track
Yes.
and field in
Yes.
particular at the primary school
Definitely.
level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why it's important for your point, because if we have to put the focus on our youth, our young athletes, therefore the primary school will be the best place to start. Eh?
You got to start from there.
So
Grassroots. Yeah.
yes, we need the resources at that level as well.
Yeah.
So this is where it should not just be the Grenada Cooperative Bank and the Grenada Union of Teachers, but the Grenada Athletic Association should also have some sort of involvement,
Yes.
not control,
No.
but because it's important for them in terms of talent and identification, etc., etc.
Yeah.
That now feeds into the
I
secondary
mean, we go.
school.
If you even go further, without the secondary school, without the primary school, there will be no secondary school.
Well, yeah,
So it has to lead up because them is the same one you see there. So if you if you build that foundation for them in the elementary school, then you will see the future for them rising up in when they get to the high school level, right? So
yeah,
it has to be there. It has to start there. And again, when we look at other islands, we look at Jamaica. Where does it start? It
mhm,
starts with the grassroots, with the younger ones in the elementary school, and go back again to a lot of things you speak about: physical education and proper people in there who is knowledgeable enough to lead those young ones on. And it's not only in track and field, but he also go for football, he also go for cricket, he goes for netball, he goes for all the major sport, basketball. But he has
yeah,
to start from
yeah.
there and move up. Yeah.
All right. So we said that good afternoon, Haran photo. Good afternoon.
Hey, good
Uh,
afternoon, man. Good
yeah,
afternoon.
yeah, and Haran, some very good photos. Keep it up. Keep it up. This is our one of our main photographers in Grenada who has been taking on the task voluntarily, I should say, of documented our,
Yes.
especially our sportsmen and sportswomen. I'm certain that he
Yes.
has a very large archives, and I still think that these are the sort of people, when it comes to the associations and ministries and things, they need to be involved, because these guys do these things out of the love for it. They're using their own resources, okay, and
Yes.
they do it for
Yes.
their love. So, good afternoon, and
Yes.
thank you, Haran, for all that you have been doing. In fact, folks, if you really want to see, like, for example, some of the photos from Intercall, you can check Haran's Facebook page and things like that. So, yeah, and Jeanette, John Stephen, definitely not control. Yes, so we're talking about that, because the moment time you say involvement of associations, they think of it as being in
In
control.
control.
Yeah,
Yes.
it not necessarily have to be in control. You can be a partner without being in control. Okay.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they get the impression that their involvement has to be one of control. So
Yeah.
because it's athletics, they believe that they must be in charge or they must have the final
And,
say. Not
and
necessarily.
the good thing about being a partner too, sometimes being a partner, you may have a say.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not always, yeah, it's not
but
always that you're just giving your funding or you're
yeah,
giving something. You
yeah,
may have a say in something too, right? So,
yeah, and it's all about consulting and
yeah.
compromise and
So give us,
ideas and yeah, and all
yeah,
these things.
yeah.
Now, Rudy, and one thing I want to talk about, I want to just briefly though, I just want to raise that because CARIFTA Games 2024, that Easter weekend is March 30th to April 1st, right? That's CARIFTA Game.
Yeah.
Intercall, the organizers have announced that Intercall 2024 will be I think it's the 19th or something, but just a week before, the week before. So Intercall is the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and the following weekend will be CARIFTA Games. And my concern has to do with the recovery of those athletes
Not only,
coming out of Intercall.
not
As a
only on the recovery part.
as a coach, I want to hear what you have to say.
I Well, I mean, how do the character team is being selected?
Well,
That's my first question.
the team is selected from the CARIFTA trials, which is part of the
Okay.
national championships, which is
Yes.
normally around, well, like for this year, for example, it was early March.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was just before, it was before CARIFTA game. Sorry, it was before Intercall, right? The national champs,
Hmm.
as a matter of fact, was just before primary schools championships.
Yes, I remember that.
But this year
But
was
but
this
I
year
think
but this year was a bit up and down because you remember Grenada was hosting the international football against the United
football,
States. So
so
they
they had
had
to
some, yeah,
reschedule.
they had some, balancing
Yeah,
to do. Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, go ahead.
Well, it can be both ways. Can be a positive and a negative. I would like to see the team train together. Um, Give them that week together for relays and especially on the relays and other events, being a part of the team, just training together. So I think moving it back and giving them 2 weeks before the CARIFTA games would have been a better idea. However, a week before sometimes is not as bad. It keep your legs fire up, it keep you fire up, it keep you going. Depends on, but when it comes to intercall, depends on who it is. They might be doing so much event. It's not that they go in there and doing one event, and that recovery can come for them to go again the following week. Most of them is doing 3 and 4 events. Because they're part of relay 4x4, they might be doing 2 events, right? So I think maybe 2 weeks prior to the CARIFTA games should be intercall.
Yeah, well, the good thing about it, I mean, we can look at various pros and
Yeah, that's how I
cons
look at it. Yeah, yeah.
in terms of the organizing part of it, in terms of the logistics and thing, in terms of the officials, it may be a bit good because they will be fresh from intercall and all these sort of
That's
things.
flowing right to.
But
Yeah,
the
yeah.
technical aspect in terms of the competition, the athletes, the ensuring that the coaches, the coaches,
Injuries.
well, yeah,
Yeah, injuries.
injuries,
Yeah.
managing
The 2 weeks.
injuries, and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
these things.
yeah.
The time, the recovery time. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be that athletes will be injured, but the
No, no,
possibility, there's
but
always a
possibility
possibility
that you
because
have a 2 weeks recovery and you could be fine a week. Like I said, it has its positive and its negative.
yeah,
I would prefer an extra week. As most of us do out here. Like I'm here before our high school championship. The rounds they have a whole week off, right? So they have almost 2 weeks, almost like 14 days. Not 14 days, 7 days, right? 7 days sometime, and some schools are 7 days, and some of them have 10 days. So it's not as bad. But for a major event like that, that is the core of Grenada athletes and the core of Grenada and the core of the Caribbean for track and field. 2 weeks would have been
Yeah.
ideal. And it
Well,
would be nice to probably see what other islands do, like
yeah.
champs, and see if there's a benefit, if Jamaica is benefiting. Then you kind of look at that too, because you can notice this year champs and Intercol was the same time.
Yeah.
That could also look at what they are doing, because the same athletes also got to come to CARIFTA Games. So that also could be something to look at as well.
All right. So good afternoon, Hazel. Hazel
Hey,
Buckles. Good
yes, good
afternoon to
evening.
you. And also our good friend Theo. She's always there with us, jamming with us, as we would say. So yes, Intercall 2024 will be the 19th of March, the 19th to the 21st of March, and then CARIFTA Games the 30th, which is the following weekend, to the 1st of April. Going back to a point we made earlier, Roger is saying, good points, gentlemen. Community development as a corporate sponsor must be genuinely impactful. Certainly, we must evaluate what we do and recreate. We can't be doing the same thing year after year and expect a different result. In collaboration with the Grenada Union of Teachers, we will examine and engage all facets to realize the common vision of all our stakeholders. And I assume that is in reference to the primary school championship,
Yeah,
yeah, which
yeah,
Roger
yeah.
is part of in terms
It's
of
big. It's a big part of it. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
yes, and I think this is where the conversation, and sadly sometimes, Rudian, we have these things and they take so long to start, talking and discussing and coming up with an action plan. It's like everyone back to their normal. As a matter of
I
fact,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. Hear the thing about it, Rudian. So Intercall, social media was ablaze. Folks were blah, blah, blah. All sorts of things. A few days after, all talk done. Probably myself, yourself, and a few others continue the conversation. CARIFTA Games, CARIFTA Games, same thing. And the thing, the strange thing about, and that's why I would tell people sometimes, you know, I don't really lose sleep over the comments certain people make. There are times I will challenge them on certain things, because
yeah,
if you keep
same thing.
repeating things that's not true, it becomes the gospel for some. So there are times I want to challenge them on it. Okay.
Yeah,
But I don't really lose sleep over some people of what they say and the comments and thing. I just read it and just, because I say,
let
hey,
it be. Yeah,
this will last for a few minutes, because at
yeah.
the end of the day, these people not serious about sports. That will go away. Hazel
What
says, go ahead.
Well, just before you mention Hazel, I think both, and I know they said the dates already, but that can change. I guess the character games is locked in. That's not a change. Intercom probably can. You also got to think of when they get the permits, what is happening prior to. Like, we don't know those things, but I believe the Intercall, the principal associations, as well as the character team should have a conversation in terms of scheduling the Intercall games. I think they should have a collaboration between each other, because what you are doing, you are promoting character games through Intercall. So you kind of want to do that as well, right? You want to be able to promote that through that
Well,
and make it into that major thing. So we're
well,
hoping that can be done. The crowd can be there, the people can be there, the support can be there, and we're just letting them know, come support our athletes. But the timing also should have been or could be something that they collaborate together, and they probably did. Or I don't know. And go from there.
yeah, and as you say, they could probably piggyback on the momentum, because the
Yeah,
momentum from Intercall. A
yeah,
few days after,
yeah.
there's still the momentum,
And
possibly a
and
momentum.
and and literally, and one of the things we talk about, and I know we did discuss it during the intercall, we talk about the pricing and the athletes and so forth. That's also got to look into consideration, because now you have the school kids who spend money for intercall. Now they're going to say, as a parent might say, okay, you cannot go to intercall, but you can go to character games. So you have to
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
consider. And I know, like, again, out here, it's what it is. That's what it is.
so
Over down there,
therefore,
we have to consider that. Yeah.
right. So a good point again, Rudy. And so therefore, it means that the organizers, Intercall, and they have to be speaking together,
They have to be.
because it means
Yeah.
therefore that in terms of prices and all these sort of the promotions and things, people will need to budget, okay?
You need to
And
budget themselves.
yeah,
Yep.
they'll need to
You need
budget.
to. Yep.
And you
Yep.
know, and we know CARIFTA Games has a family kind of vibes, family oriented. You know,
Yep.
if James is running, you know, James' family will want to come. Okay,
Yeah.
so his
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
sisters, brothers, the aunt, you know, apart from
And
intercall,
and
they
let me
may not be.
if
Yeah.
I can add some just before you go, in terms of the collaboration and making sure.
Mhm.
Like again, this time people will be swarming in Grenada. So
Well,
that could be a plus by the timing.
uh-huh.
The timing could be the right timing because people is there. The crowds will be there. Foreigners will be there. I believe myself, and if you're not careful, you might be there too. The crowd will be there because then you have people coming for Easter, and they might come a little bit earlier to link. So that could be a good thing for the crowd wise for business aspect. It may not be wise for the athletes, but in terms of getting the people out to support. The support can be there in terms of the athletes. Could be okay. Could be a week, like I said, a week could be good for them. Um, and it's not one of the meets you can go and say, well, I don't have to run fast. It's in the call you have to run fast because you're trying to do something for your school and get points, and then as well as the character team. But how much of them that's in intercall in every event that is in the character games? Character games could be probably a 60-man team. Intercall is you're looking at almost maybe 1,500 athletes. So you're talking about the difference is less than 100 different in terms of the intercall kids making the character team and the intercall games with all the athletes. So if you say, okay, are we going to change it just for 50 people? Is that fair? No. So you have to think of that too, right? So
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Hazel, once again, I'm not sure if this is done, but having a survey for participating athletes to share their experience, highs and lows, we can use this, we can use that as next steps in improving. Certainly, and again, it all boils down to what you were saying there in terms of having the discussion with the athletes, how long you take to, you know, have a sort of postmortem, not just of the officials like the coaches and things, but also from the athletes, hear from them of the experiences. So certainly you can build on that for future, championships, I know there is the Youth Commonwealth Games coming up in Trinidad and Tobago. Um, yes, the Youth Commonwealth Games. Why say no Olympics?
come on.
Yeah, we have the Youth Commonwealth. So this is something we're hoping that we can have participation in as well, to get our young athletes, because it's all, and we would have noticed that, Rudian, the Jamaicans are always seem to be superior in other aspects, and a lot had to do with their level of experience. We spoke about that almost every week or every other weekend. The Jamaican athletes are competing.
Yeah,
So, so when they're competing at the CARIFTA Games, there's a level of confidence
confidence. Yes.
compared to in terms of competition.
Yeah.
Yes, they're competing against some of the athletes for the first time. In many cases, for the first time, even though some of those other athletes, like in the case of Grenada, we have some of them who go to Jamaica, other islands. But in generally, but because they are used to competition almost every weekend, they are competing with
Yeah.
confidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you look at, in contrast to some of our athletes, and when I say our, I mean outside of Jamaica, that is how the Jamaicans overpower them most times, because
Yeah.
they compete with confidence. They have been
Confidence. Yeah.
competing week after week or every other weekend. Some of them may have had, no less than probably 10, 10 competitions for the year.
Yeah.
Whereas in the average Joe in
Three.
Grenada,
Three.
3 or 4,
Yeah.
this sort of
Maybe.
thing. So
Maybe. And that
that's the
and
thing.
and and that is certainly something I was going to say too, right? Those athletes are okay running week after week. Their body can recover. And if you have, like I said, our athletes, if they don't come be competing this week they compete and next week they compete, their body wouldn't be able to, may not know how to recover. So they, like I said, intercall a week before could be a benefit. It could be a negative based on terms of if they are accustomed with recovering. But I believe next year with everything that's happening, I would like to see a lot of this individual athletes go to a lot of events. Hopefully, we can start maybe from since December by having some invitational track meets, and once they get a track, have some invitational track meets. It doesn't have to be for prizes, some you don't have that, but just for them to race.
Yeah.
Just for them to race. Yeah. So
that's good. And when we come back, I want us to speak a little bit about that, because I think the whole issue of the competition among our young athletes, it's lacking to an extent. Yes, the Athletics Association, they host the development meets, as they call it, and things like that, but we need some more of that. And then we also want to talk about the relays. Let me give you some highlights.
Meters under 20 points. The medals will be presented.
Grenada set to host next year, 2024, in their 50th year of independence, so it will be a massive occasion for them. Hosting for the third time Grenada
CARIFTA Games 2023.
And they have been fabulous hosts in the past.
The bronze medalist from Bermuda, Brisbane.
More medal presentations. The 5,000 under 20 boys, Bermuda silver, but no one got close to Tafari Waldron of Trinidad and Tobago, a bronze medalist last year, upgraded that to gold.
Bermuda, Kazai Sealy.
3.38 kilometers fast. He was fresh and enjoyed himself down the straightaway. Said he was injured last year, got the bronze, but has put in injury-free training this season. That has
the gold medalist and 2023 CARIFTA Games, 5,000 meters under 20 boys from Trinidad and Tobago, Tafari Waldron.
Yes, so that's just well, I'm certain you are glad to see Grenada there featured and at least mentioned. As you heard, Grenada will be hosting 2024. Just in and between some of the highlights.
Definitely.
Credit to Sportsmax for that. So we were talking about the competition for our young people, and it was good to see the relays. Grenada participated in the relays, especially the mixed relays. And at one point in time, we thought that for the inaugural mixed relay, Grenada would have won the gold. Grenada would have won the gold. But it was good to see, and it shows you that the discussion all along, and a couple of years now, in terms of Grenada participating in relay events at the senior as well as at the junior level, most folks have been vindicated, because there's always been the talent for Grenada to at least medal in whatever competition, because here the analysis, Rudian, and just moving away from the CARIFTA Games. At one point in time, Grenada had 3 of the top quarter milers in the world. At one point in time, they probably would have ranked, let's say, within the top probably 10, But at least we had 2 who were ranked within the top 5.
Yeah.
If you're following, go back to the stats and you'll see there was a year when Grenada had 3 world-ranked quarter milers. Alexis James, Breland Taplin, and Rondell Bartholomew. That year in particular was a year when many thought that Grenada could have been, Grenada was one of the threatening teams to have for not just a 4x4 men, but a 4x4 mixed relay, because it was the relay, the world relays in the Bahamas. I was at that meet. And I remember the question being asked, so why Grenada not here? I mean, blah, blah, blah. Well, I could not, I'm not a member of the association. I can't answer that, But when you look at Trinidad and Tobago as an example, not one athlete at the time was ranked in the top 10, but they were able to medal. When you look at the Bahamas, not one athlete ranked in the top 10 in the world, but they were able to win medals. So I'm saying if we going by talent, I mean, yes, strategy is also important, but if we are going by mere talent, there was no reason why Grenada could not have been in the conversation. But that is behind us. But it was good to see for a start at the CARIFTA Games, we had a mixed relay team. There may be question as to whether or not it was in terms of how we put them together, who ran which leg, whatever it is. But again, I'm saying it was really happening to see what we saw in terms of Grenada being able to put a team together and to medal. And at one point in time, you thought that we had the gold medal. Yeah. So what you thought about the relay?
Well, going back to the last bit of the conversation, it's something we've been talking about for quite a while in terms of relays. Discussion I have with many coaches out here from Toronto who ask me the same question. I don't have an answer for them. And they're talking about these coaches is from different islands. And they say exactly what you said. We have top rank in the world. Why we don't have a 4x4 team? I could remember Hazelin and the girls had a phenomenal 4x4 team. And they missed qualifying by a little bit in their time. And then we come back now. Well, our discussion keeps saying it's time for us to have a mixed relay. Now, not only a mixed relay. Michael, look at Japan. Look at China. They are always in the finals in a 4x1, men and women. And they don't have nobody in the 100 meters, nobody in the 200 meters, nobody in the 400 meters, nobody in the 800 meters. But they have a relay team. Because why? They strategize themselves and they tell themselves it is time for us to focus on what can get us in the games. You know what I mean? And I think it's time for us to do that. It's time for us to start focusing and saying, hey, how can we get there? How can we get on the podium now? Yes, we love Krani and he has done a lot for us. We don't know how long he has again. He could be slowly on his way out. We don't know. It's just based on, his health, right? And after him, then what? You guess what I'm saying, right? And I'm not saying, no, we don't have no other young athletes coming up. They are coming up. But fastest way to get there, fastest way for another medal in the track, not on the field, on the track, is a mixed relay. And it's something that we really, really should focus on. And I mentioned it. We speak to the Intercall team with the principals, and we said a mixed relay at Intercall. We said it. I know they're thinking about points because GBSS wouldn't get points and Convent wouldn't get points and so forth. The race could run for no points. But I understand Intercall concept and I get it. But it has to start somewhere. Even the elementary schools, it has to start somewhere. And a mixed relay is the thing. And I believe that is our goal for Grenada. And for us to get on a podium in track and field, that is not an individual, a team in the team, a mixed relay is the way to go. And they should focus on that. They should put the funding in it. They should have 8 boys and 8 girls, or 6 boys and 6 girls, and there you focus. You raise them. Let them go on a tour. Let them. Out here now in the US right now, there's mixed relay. Let them get out here and compete. There's 4x1, there's 4x4, and if they don't compete, how are we gonna know they are good enough? Let them run.
Well,
let them get out there and do it.
A few years now, we have been trying to get Grenada to, or schools in Grenada rather, to not just the schools and probably at the national level, because they do have that as well, to get back into the pen relays, for example. You know,
Yeah.
the last school to participated in the pen relays would have been St. Wester Hall. Yeah, I think it was Wester Hall secondary schools. Wester Hall Secondary School participated in the pen relays some years ago. Then we also had a Grenada team in 2012, I think. It was just before the Olympic Games. That's when Kirani competed. We had Kirani, we had Rondell, we had Joel, Redhead, and I think Harry. Right. So that was in 2012, I think. Yeah, at the pen relays. Since then, we haven't had serious competition in terms of a relay team. I think there was once when they went to Trinidad for the Hampton Games or the national champs, things like that. So, but you're talking about competition. This is one that you can. Most of the folks from Jamaica, for example, they head into the pen relays.
Yeah.
That's their signature event after the CARIFTA Games. They head into the pen relays. After the pen relays, they return to Jamaica, and there's more competition in Jamaica for them. Unlike Grenada, well, I think it will be the Whitsuntide Games. That is sometime next month, or May or June or somewhere like that, and that's probably the end of it. But we need more of those sort of competition.
No, and that's really what it is. Like I said, it's about identifying, and especially those who, as long as they can travel, and they can go, they can do whatever. And then you have foreign-based Grenadians who is performing out here. There are foreign-based Grenadians as well, and that's why I'm looking forward to see if we want to move forward, and by coming out from 4 gold medal and or the position we came in CARIFTA to move up, we have to start looking outside of Grenada as well. How can Grenadians on the diaspora can compete at those games? And a lot of parents reach out to me and they don't know. They don't have a clue, and then so they don't know how to get their athletes compete, and they are competing. So how can we open up for Grenadians to compete at the CARIFTA Games, and that our name could start, being spread out more than it is right now. So I just think that's one of the things that we really need to look at, and open it up for everybody, every Grenadian, everyone possible who can compete and who can come back or whichever. We have Grenadians, like I said, out here that, it's easier for them to travel. And they can go to those state to state. It's not that, not that hard. It could be a challenge being home, but have a circle. You have your 12 people, have a circle with them, and they come out here, they go into 5 meets before they even go back home and train, before they go back home and meet up. They can have a train. And that's what we need to do. We need to find the funding, put it in those athletes, and then send them out here. Let them go on a tour. The Canadian team, they go on tour and they compete, right? And they come to the Caribbean and they train during the winter season, right? So, and then they come back and they perform. Right now, they're in the United States. They are performing all over, So, and I think right now there's the big meeting in Monksack right now, and I think a lot of them they're competing right now. And that's what we need to do. We need to get our athletes out here. The competition will get better. Not one here, and 2 months later there's another one, and whenever, hoping that they can make qualifying standard. No, it shouldn't be that way. It should be time after time. And again, we are keen on the relay because my understanding that based on your place in the relay also get you a place in the Olympics. So all of that too helps. So, you have teams that can, you have a relay team that is guaranteed to be at the World Championship and to be at the Olympic Games, because there's a possibility on your position at the and then make it top of that. It's home in a sense. It's in the Caribbean. It is not farther than abroad, So we need to look into that, and I really hope that they do. I really hope that we can do that, because we have these young athletes coming up,
yeah.
and they are doing this stuff. So it's time for us to start coming out from the old thing we need to do and get into something new, something different.
Good afternoon to you, Richie. Richie Olivier is saying, hi, Mike. We have started to prepare technically for Intercall 2024. We are almost there with equipment upgrade, so we are prepared for anything that come our way, including CARIFTA, and that's Richie Oliver from who they did all the technical TNR communications, all the good technical work. Let me just see if we can get a little more from the CARIFTA Games. And
20 boys champion Andrew Stone.
That's camera aim and 10, and of course Kareem Street Thompson, an outstanding long jump in his
from the Bahamas, Andrew Brown.
Medal ceremony for the under 17 boys 200 meters. Andrew Brown of the Bahamas taking the bronze medal.
Bright future, tall and fast. Can see him taking up the mantle at 400 meters in the future.
The silver medalist from Grenada, Ethan Sam.
A medal in the 100 meters, and now up from bronze there to silver in the 200 meters.
Medals being presented by the sponsor Oaktree Medical.
And our champion in the boys under 17 200 meters from the Bahamas, Smith.
Fabulous run from Caden Smith. Says the Bahamas is my mother's country and it's my country too.
Fantastic final stretch to secure the gold medal.
He embraces Bahama land. The Bahamians embrace him as well. Medal ceremony, 7 boys, 100 meters final.
And Michael, I was just saying, and if I read between the lines, I want to say that the young one who won is not a born. He wasn't born in his country. Which was my point I was just making. He wasn't born there. So, and I'm pretty sure he probably live abroad.
His mother is from
his mother. Right. Yeah. So my point now I'm just making. And sorry, man, I do have to run out soon. But just before I go, going back on part of CARIFTA Games, we are disappointed in some of the officiating. I know you probably will get there, but just before I run out, I can say that it wasn't all of the officiating, but some of it was right in front of us, right in front of our eyes. We could have seen it, and there was definitely some biasness, if I use that better of a word. And officiating officials is hard to get, if I put it this way, and good officials is very hard to get. And it's not only, and I know this is not high, I usually use IAAF, but World Athletics Games. But it's okay. Yeah, but we're definitely under the banner of World Athletics, right? And the performance in the CARIFTA Games is as top as being at the World Junior Championship. The athletes perform to that level. But the officiating, you wouldn't get that high officiating as you can. But it would be good for them to really look into that a lot more and let it not be on a biasness of the host country. Let it be fair across the board. Let it be about the athletes and not about country for the official. As an official, being an official, in that moment as being an official, you cannot see yourself as a Grenadian. Using Grenada for an example, and let me make it fair for the Grenadian to get a medal or move up in the position. No, it should be about the athletes. In that moment, you're not a Grenadian. You are official with no country in that sense, right? So you have no ally to no one, and I think that's what it should be like. It doesn't matter what it is, and I think there was a bit of that, a bit of disappointment. But overall, it was good. You have bad officials in a lot of places. We see what happening. We see what happening at Champs in Jamaica when the official literally walk across with a chair, you know, in one of the race and somebody run right into him. We have those incidents that happen. However, I'm not putting everything on the officials, but there was something that was right. Yes, we also look at the when they given the commentators, it was only on some of the athletes only. Even in the interviews, a lot of times some of it that most people see was only on the athletes for the first day or two, whichever it was. But you tends to little things you can work on, and I just hope that, like I said, Grenada, when they put their team together, they go back and they look at what happened in the last games, how make sure that we don't do this, make sure we put the right people in the right places, and let us have the best CARIFTA game that ever come through the whole Caribbean. And that's really what it is, and that's the mindset they got to have. And for you to have the best is to have the best people. You have to have them in training. When you know your officials should be selected by December, and then you have training with them, you meet with them, so that they know what you need from them, what you want from them, what they should be doing, the position. You should have clinics with them, and not only one, but you should have two, at least three clinics with them prior to the games, because you want to literally have the best, and because you have the international eyes on you in that moment. You got people from all over is coming in to see, and especially those scouts is coming into the country, and you have foreigners coming to the country. As beautiful as we say we love our country, as beautiful as it is, we also got to show it in terms of how we behave too, and the things that we do too. So I really hope that can be, but it was a disappointment in that part of the CARIFTA Games, with some of the events that we see in that wasn't fair. However, overall, it was a good event.
All right. Thank you very much, Rudy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I will still be
Hopefully,
continue
yeah,
listening. I'm just gonna be live with you. I
yeah,
will be listening still, but I won't be able to be live with you. All right. And if
okay,
I have to add a comment, I'll
that's
just
fine. Okay,
send a message to you. All right. Thanks, man.
all right then. Okay, you're welcome. So that's Rudy and Sylvan, live in Toronto, Canada. My co-host. Chelly Joseph is saying it is also very important that each country send their media personnel provide results and highlights from a local perspective at these meets. Early said, I look forward to the day when all of Grenada will embrace our sons and daughters born in another country but willing to advance our efforts in sports. And well said, Rudian, we have an opportunity to show off to the world. Chenny, going back to your point about the media, as one who covered the CARIFTA Games for many years, many years, yeah, that's a lot. It has to do a lot with a couple of things. And the challenges here are because the CARIFTA Games stage over the Easter weekend, and because of the media landscape in Grenada, you know that, Chenny, that on a Thursday, CARIFTA, Saturday, Sunday, Monday in terms of competition, but the activity spread from the Friday, Good Friday. But generally, which is traditional in Grenada, that the last newscast on media, radio stations, television stations in Grenada will be on the Thursday night. And then the next newscast will be Tuesday. So nothing on Good Friday, nothing on Saturday, nothing on Sunday, nothing on Monday. So I'm just, throwing it at you in terms of the challenges. So you say about sending, media personnel to cover and provide results. That's providing that these stations decide to carry the CARIFTA game. So, for example, I was looking at various stations carrying the CARIFTA game because you know me, I want to get different perspectives. So we had Winners TV, St. Lucia. We had Sportsmarks, Jamaica. We had CBC TV in Barbados. There was also Scene TV in the USA. Okay. So I was looking at what they were doing. Oh, and then there was ZNS TV in the Bahamas. Bahamas in particular, I was looking. So what the Bahamas were doing is that they were taking a general feed, but they were breaking away to do interviews of their athletes. So probably something like that, Jenny, may be possible. Okay, so if, let's say, a station in Grenada is carrying the CARIFTA Games as the rights holder, they can have someone there who can do something outside of the general feed. So finding out, and in this day and age, with technology, you do not need a satellite uplink system to do a live broadcast. So you can be there with a camera and a computer to such an extent that you can actually do a live interview or have live interviews with athletes, coaches, officials, etc. Gone are the days where you would need your star uplink and blah 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 and all these sort of things. So good point you make, Chenny, but I'm just sharing with you the challenges, and it's all because of what. Okay. I said I wanted to touch on, and I will come back to the CARIFTA game, because over that Easter weekend, it was not just the track and field. We had the swimmers, for example, and I want to say kudos to the Grenada Amateur Swimming Association for continuing, despite the challenges and the many challenges, I should say, including facility. Remember the facility that these kids are training and competing on locally, and then having to go and compete regionally and internationally. And they were still able to pick up some medals, 3 medals for Grenada at the CARIFTA Swimming Championship. Well, they call it the CARIFTA Aquatic Championships in Curacao. Kudos to all the swimmers, because most times we just concentrate on the medalists, but there are those who were able to achieve, personal bests and improve, and we have to take that in light of the facility that these kids train in. We have to look at that in that context. Okay, so kudos to the swimmers and also to the Swimming Association. We also had the police cricket team that participated in the regional police T20 tournament in Barbados and reached the final. They were beaten in the final by St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but they're beaten finalists, so they're the runners up. So kudos to our cricketers, or policemen, I should say, cricketers. And then we had the young JD who went in karate in St. Vincent. I mean, we don't hear much about karate and judo and taekwondo, but they are recognized sports in Grenada. And young JD went and she won a gold, and she also won a bronze medal in St. Vincent. Kudos. And at the same time, we had our cricketers, women cricketers, participating in the Windward Islands tournament in St. Lucia. And by the way, they actually won the T20 tournament that completed yesterday. And kudos to Afi Fletcher, because Afi, who missed out on a couple of matches, came in and she was able to guide, as captain, was able to guide Grenada to victory and to the title, the T20. So they are the champions of the T20 tournament, Windward Islands women's cricket tournament. Afi with 2 centuries. Afi was blazing, man. So the team, well, if we're talking about team returning, I know we like to talk about, welcome home. Well, they're returning home later on this afternoon. So if you want to go down to the airport to welcome them, please do that. It's not just our athletes. We have our swimmers. Well, they came in already. We have cricketers, T20 cricketers from the policemen. We have the young JD. We have the women cricket team, who should be returning later on this afternoon. They are the champions of T20 in the Windward Islands. what do we do? You know, I'm saying, and again, I'm making the point that we should try to encompass our our sportsmen and sportswomen. We must not just be selective. And I want to make that point because I think some people misunderstood, and I will say it here. When there was this video of promo being circulated with the Prime Minister, highlighting again that one of our footballers, national footballers, were playing on the weekend. The point I was making was that the video came out that day, which was a Wednesday. And that same day, the guy played a football game. So I wanted to know what was the relation. Was it more of promoting the game or promoting a sports bar that was showing the game? Because here it was that same day, this guy was playing a football game against Manchester United of all teams. They were playing against Manchester United of all teams. So if you were saying something about supporting the guy and blah, 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 that was a game I would have probably said, well, hey, he's playing today, he's playing on the weekend, etc., etc. But the point I was making in general was that we could have done something because we had all these sportsmen and sportswomen representing Grenada at that period. We had our cricketers, women cricketers, we had our policemen, we had our athletes. We could have done something that would have said, hey, support our national sportsmen and women. And if you want to say, here are a few, or here is one, or whatever it is. But here's the other point. Don't you know that the guy played this weekend? He played today. He played today. Brentford played today. So that's what I'm saying. It should not just be a one-off thing. He played today. Brentford played a game today, but we didn't hear anything about it. Please, folks, I don't think we people have just jumped. Listen, social media, as I told you, social media, you don't find common sense on social media. No, period. If you're looking for common sense, avoid social media. You do not find common sense on social media. So that's why, in fairness to a lot of people, I just, pass a lot of the comments by the wayside because I know that it didn't really worth the while. Let me get something from Sportsmax. Going back to the CARIFTA Games, I want you to listen to just a little piece. You may have seen it, you may have heard about it, but just in case you missed it, it had to do with the CARIFTA Games. Just listen to that. Thank you, Lance Whitaker from Sportsmax. On that, from the zone, I'm speaking to an official of the CARIFTA Games.
Now, one of those, the boys under 20, 4 by 100 that was won by Jamaica, being called into question with the Bahamas lead-off man Zachary Evans stumbling forward and not leaving the blocks. The race was called back with the runners halfway through their opening. This was launched by fourth place who missed the bronze by 7, noting they did not have enough time to recover from a faulty start. The meet officials agreed to have a rerun Sunday, but the teams refused to participate, leading to much unwanted confusion around one of the premier events at the meet. Now, there was also an incident involving St. Kitts under 17 boy Jalen Bennett, who was left off the start list for the 200-meter final and subsequently had to run alone during the closing ceremony. And earlier Monday, it was confirmed that the Jamaican Shaquan Gordon, who got bronze in the 110-meter hurdles on Monday, was disqualified hours after the race had already concluded. So here to help us understand what took place is the competition director for this year's CARIFTA Games, David Charlton. David, CARIFTA, always fabulous. This one, no different. So before we uncover the controversial side, what were the good things about this world-class meet for you?
Well, one of the great things is that we have been getting compliments from the local and international fans about how great the meet was executed. Even though, like you said, behind the scenes, there were a lot of challenges, but we met them all him. And at the end of the day, I believe that the LOC gave the track and field fans a fantastic track event.
Yeah, and what the fans obviously embracing the event because Bahamas also celebrated the 50th year of its independence. So it was a festive feeling for the Bahamians, and a lot of medals won by the Bahamians, certainly more than you did the last year and the last CARIFTA Games before that.
Yes, this is the best we've done in quite a number of years. So it was going to be a part of it. As a matter of fact, the first time we ever won CARIFTA, I was a member of that team. So it certainly was exciting to be a part of this grand 50th event. Yeah,
that was way back in 1984, David. So you're aging yourself at the moment. But
1980 in Bermuda.
Okay, 80. Okay, all right. Even well, a little later, but 84 was the last time that the Bahamians actually topped the medal table. About those issues now, let's start with 4x1 because I saw you on television explaining on Sunday morning the position as meet director regarding that 4x100 rerun. We know that the Barbados team had made a protest evening Sunday. Can you take us through that process and what would have triggered the officials' decision to rerun the race? Because it apparently was very unpopular.
Yeah, well, as you know, you mentioned that the lead-off leg did not leave the blocks, his hand did not leave the track. So that was deemed not a false start. Now, there was some delay in calling the race back, but the race was not disqualified, and it was rerun based on the decision of the starter. Barbados felt that because they had ran 80 meters and the Bahamas did not run 80 meters, that they were at a disadvantage. So their leadoff runner would not have had the recovery time as the Bahamian leadoff runner would have. So they thought that they were put at a disadvantage, and therefore they protested. Because the Bahamian athlete did not leave the blocks, he should not be disqualified, and the race should be run over. We then subsequently asked all of the teams to make contact with all of them to declare whether or not they will be showing up to run. A number of the teams said, one or two of the teams said that yes, they are available. We could not get a commitment from Barbados to say that they would definitely run. So in that light, it was decided not to run the race over.
Yeah, I saw you trying to explain the situation on Sunday morning, David, and it did appear to me as if the decision to rerun the race was not hard and fast. There was something about your narrative that suggested that you were awaiting to see if the teams would actually do a rerun. So what?
That is correct. We had asked the teams. First of all, we made contact with all the teams and informing them that the race would be rerun. And hours before the race, we asked them to declare their teams to run. And like I said, a few of the teams did their statements saying that they will be available to rerun.
But David, but David, why would Barbados protest and then not seem interested in the rerun?
Well, you'll have to ask Barbados that. I understand that because we did ask them to declare their team, which they did not do.
All right, shall we move on then to the other? What about the St. Kitts athlete who had to run all alone? How did that happen? Because I don't think I've ever seen that in CARIFTA Games history.
But it's the timing officials missed out on him. There was another athlete who did not qualify for the finals, and his name was down on the start list. The coach from came in and indicated that his athlete did not deserve to be in that spot, and he would and did not earn that spot. So we then reported it to the timing officials. Went through the photos, and it was found that he did not earn the spot in the finals, and it was the St. Kitts athlete that earned the spot. We then redid the start list. At the end of the day, we failed to make contact with the St. Kitts athlete, informing him that he had made the finals. We had some communication challenges at the meet, and I think this all was part of our shortcoming. As a media director, I have to take full responsibility for that. We failed that athlete, and at the end of the day, that athlete wanted to run that race. It was until the race, 200 coaches that Igata did not show, and they launched a protest. The athlete wanted to run, and by all means, we made all effort to ensure that that athlete had himself the opportunity to run at the CARIFTA Games. He had the slowest time qualifying for the finals, and he ended up after his run with a 4th place finish, an official time at the CARIFTA Games.
Sir David, I'm trying to understand. I just want you to tell me with this process. Did the starters have leeway to use discretion in their decision making?
What race? The 200?
No, just generally.
Well, if you're talking generally, yes, starters do have, according to IWF rules, they do have they can use their discretions at certain times. And if you're talking in particular about the 4x1, yes, the starter did use his discretion and disqualifying the Bahamas and rerunning the races right then.
And that's what I'm talking about in terms of the possibility of certain races going into disrepute because of the use of said discretion, because then it would seem as if some athletes or nations would get preferable treatment as opposed to others. Would you agree?
Well, the IWF rulebook allows the starter to make that decision. At the start of every race, there's an ATO who is responsible to oversee the start of the races. So it's not just starters who have a say in these decisions.
The 110-meter hurdles in particular, the Jamaican youngster Shaquane Gordon was disqualified hours after the race concluded, apparently because of a false start. That's what we're hearing. What would have led to that decision being made or being communicated to the athlete long after the race was finished?
Well, there was by the Bahamian delegate that the athlete should have been disqualified in the first instances where there was a false start, because after the video showed that he did false start. So that protest was then upheld by the jury of appeal. The Jamaican delegation then protested the protest because I think there was some discrepancy on the athlete that was identified before started. I believe the Bahamian delegation indicated that it was the athlete that won the race who false started, but then that was not the case. And the Jamaican delegation then won the protest, that it was the athlete that got the bronze and not the athlete that got the gold. So there was a lot of back and forth between the jury of appeal, the Bahamian delegation, and the Jamaican delegation.
Oh, okay.
And that's why it took so long.
Okay. Almost got confused there, but I hope you understand the point.
Yeah, I know, folks. It might have been confusing to you too. I think the guy was a bit perplexed because, a lot of protest and someone protest the protest and, a lot of things. But the bottom line is that hopefully, right, that we do not see that repeated in the Grenada scenario. There are a lot of things coming out there that I believe that Grenada can learn from, and I'm certain that we can deliver, okay? Because it would be foolish for all that we have seen and heard for Grenada to repeat those things in 2024. It would be really foolish of us, and I have every confidence that the Athletic Association, under its leadership, along with I don't know what the LOC, but I do know that there are people capable enough of ensuring that we have a very successful 2024 games. 2016 games, it was, yeah, listen, all games, they have their challenges, sometimes the challenges do appear at the start of the meet and probably before, an hour, 2 hours, they can deal with those things. Because I recall in 2016, we had some challenges with the media, for example, and he had to deal with it on the day one, So these things do happen. But by and large, I thought that the CARIFTA Games in the Bahamas was basically mad, because when you hear all these things, and I mean, there were some things that came up there that I wasn't even aware of, if we listen to more of the interview, there were other things that came up that I wasn't even aware of. So there were a lot of things that were happening, some of them not to the naked eyes. Some people who were there saw it and reported on it, commented on it, and things like that. So, but we have an opportunity to get it right. And certainly, early planning for Grenada is very crucial, because we know that early planning is important for the success of any major event. And no doubt, CARIFTA is no exception. There are a couple of things that we have to put in place in terms of, well, they are important. The infrastructure is one. Hosting the games requires significant investment in infrastructure, in the infrastructure. I heard the president, Mr. Conrad Francis, already speaking about the stadium and the track and some of those things. We also have to look at the transportation system, for example, the accommodation. By the way, there are some folks from St. Kitts and Nevis who have been inquiring about accommodation for 2024. And the numbers, I can tell you, no less than 20. And that is what was communicated directly to me. I don't know what was communicated to other people, but no less, a group of 20. It's 20 something, but they told me a minimum of 20. So, the homestay program, for example, folks, we may have to, revive the homestay program. Back in 2007, hosting of the World Cup. You remember the homestay program? So we may have to revive that, the homestay program. So folks, if you believe that you can accommodate and you have some reasonable rates that you want to share, contact the Athletic Association or contact the Grenada Tourism Authority. Let them know that come 2024, with all the events that, taking place, that you have a room or two that, that will be available, and here are the rates, etc., etc. Start working with them, start letting people know, so that when the inquiries are made, they can start, putting people in touch. Yeah. So these are some of the things. Yeah. So the planning early definitely allow for sufficient time, to do things, and whether it's testing the facilities or whatever, but we do have intercall a few days before. So that should meet the standards required for the games. Budgeting is also important, because the cost of hosting the CARIFTA Games can be very substantial. And early planning allows for more accurate budgeting and fundraising, meeting with the various sponsors, the other stakeholders. It wouldn't be, surprising if some of the sponsors are already speaking with the Athletic Association, because it will be very costly. In the case of Bahamas, for example, where one sponsor came on with $100,000, 100,000 Bahamas dollars, 100,000 US dollars, 100,000 EC dollars is not 100,000 US dollars, So sponsorship will be important. The fundraising activity will also be important. And these are things that the Athletic Association or the LOC can think about in terms of the sponsorship. You don't have to wait until the year 2024 to start talking about sponsors. Now is the time to start engaging sponsors. The early planning also helps to identify potential cost savings and revenue generating opportunities. Because if you start planning early, you will know where you can save, you can know where you can raise funds and revenue, etc., etc. Security is another important. Any large event, whether it's CONCACAF football, Grenada versus USA, CARIFTA Games, Intercall itself poses a security challenge. So the security of the games will obviously be the top priority. And again, early planning allows for comprehensive risk assessments. For those who involved in planning and things will know what I mean about the risk assessments and the development of appropriate security measures. And the logistics, these are things that will always come with the accommodation and security and things. The logistics of hosting the games are very complex, you know. Thousands of athletes and, well, in total, it will be thousands because we have the athletes, we have the officials, then we have spectators arriving, from all over the Caribbean and probably even further afield, So early planning allows for the development of efficient transportation systems, especially in light of the weekend. But you remember, CARIFTA Games is normally on a Easter weekend. So transportation will be a challenge. 2016, 2000, they were able to deal with those things. So certainly the transportation thing will be important as part of the logistics, crowd management plans, and the contingency plans for unforeseen, circumstances. All these things will be important. And finally, the legacy. We need to ensure that just as how people were talking about 2016, when the last Grenada hosted it, we want to hear them talking about in terms of 2024. It was one of the best experiences they have had. So it's important that the legacy of the games extend beyond, Easter 2024. In fact, we should be challenging Trinidad and Tobago to up their game because Trinidad and Tobago will be the host in 2025. So Trinidad and Tobago will have to come good because Grenada will set the standard, So these are the sort of things. Really, in summary, the early planning is very critical to ensure the success of the CARIFTA Games, both in terms of the event itself and lasting legacy. So certainly, I think we're onto something. Let me see. Grenada CARIFTA homestay. Jenny, hashtag Grenada CARIFTA homestay. Right? Yeah, probably. Kids start trending with it. And here's said, can Intercall be moved to an earlier date for planning purposes? This is something that the organizer will have to consider. I'm certainly thinking that they will have to consider probably even by probably a week or so. Listen, there must be some reason why they would have decided that Intercall will be that date. And that's just my assumption, but it's something that can be considered. Yes, so folks, I think that's about it in terms of coverage of sports. Yes, Haran is up to the Principals Association, and I hope that they would have met already to discuss the 2023 games, and probably that is coming, that the date may have come out of their postmortem. I'm hoping that it would have come out of their postmortem, but let's wait and see. But there's quite a lot to look forward to, and I think it's now with all that happened. I think, and the challenges that the Bahamas face and being ventilated out, I think is also important for Grenada because it will be important for Grenada to ensure that they do not repeat those mistakes. Okay. It's not the first time Grenada hosting it. So certainly they have people who are involved or will be involved who have had that level of experience. However, it must not be a situation where the thinking should be that of 2016. A lot has happened since then. So the thinking has to be beyond that. That's the problem we have sometimes. This thinking will be back then on 2016. We hosted a successful meet in 2016, but so much has, so many things have evolved since then. This is almost 10 years later, albeit 7? Yeah, but it will be 8 then. So, we can't be thinking that way. So while it might be important to have some of the people with that level of experience, it's also important to get some fresh thinking and people who will bring some new ideas on the table. Obviously, it will be under the guidelines of the NACA and the World Athletics, and being guided by the Grenada Athletic Association. But the thinking has to be different. We have to be thinking outside of the box. What's about the opening ceremony? We have to. It's an opportunity to showcase Grenada's culture. So we have to put things in place and to be on point. Remember that same year we celebrating our 50th of independence. So a lot of things happening. Just like this year, there was so much happening for the Bahamas, although we didn't get everything right, because it was Bahamas, they celebrating their 50th year of independence. CARICOM celebrating their 50th year as well. And it was the 50th edition of the CARIFTA Games. So there were a lot happening for the Bahamas in terms of 50-50-50. Next year, God's willing, Grenada will be celebrating its 50th anniversary of independence. It's an opportunity so that we can get everything right. So that first quarter of 2024 will be jam-packed with activities. Okay? So whether or not even the National Celebrations Committee should be involved to some extent, because this, whether it's CARIFTA Games, Independence, they all have a national importance, national significance. So we have to be speaking the same language. All these various organizations and bodies and committees, they have to be sitting down and talking. And Tourism Authority, National Celebrations Committee, Grenada Athletic Association, Intercall Committee, everybody had to be talking. And it's probably a good time for us to have a national body to look at these things and to bring everyone together and to come up with an action plan for 2024 to make whatever we have in, especially in the first quarter of 2024, not just the first quarter, but I'm just speaking specifically on that because most of those major events are jammed into that, to make it a grand affair. So something that people will recall. Folks, I think I've been speaking quite a bit. Let me go back to some of the comments there that I missed out. Coaches can correct me, but is it that they coach their athletes to peak for integral rather than CARIFTA or champs? Yeah, that's something that the coaches may want to talk about. Richard Cherubin, good afternoon, Richard. Medics team, crucial, yes. Sorry if I missed out that one. Very, very important. And Richie, I'm glad you mentioned that because you noticed that for the CARIFTA Games, we didn't see stretchers, we saw wheelchairs. I don't know what was the reason, but wheelchairs, right? So there was once where after an event, the first, second, and third place finishers were wheeled off. Yeah. Or the second, third, and fourth, and then the first place was waiting for a wheelchair. But that was the nature of it. They were just wheeling people off. I could only laugh now, but it wasn't looking nice. But I wonder what happened to the stretchers, because in terms of a guy with a cramp and whatever it is, you just have them in a wheelchair. There was one where someone was in a wheelchair and their feet was just flapping. That didn't look really nice. Hazel said Peking should be for CARIFTA, not Intercall. This is from my perspective. Well, yeah, and that is in reference to Haron's question about that in terms of Peking, whether it's for Intercall or CARIFTA Games or even champs. I'm certain that coaches will be looking at the bigger picture and certainly CARIFTA Games. But you may have a point there, Haron. You may believe that some of the coaches are just thinking about the Intercall, and that may be some of the problems we have with our athletes. Have to think outside of the box, yes. And Chenny is saying here, is there a reason why CARIFTA does not include any road race? that is something we probably can ask Mike Sands or Keith Joseph or others, in terms of what new events they can include, etc., etc. Because as you recall, this year, for the first time, they had the Special Olympics, athletes participating, albeit, Intercol, had that. We set the trend already, we had that in Intercol, but it was nice to see at the CARIFTA Games, albeit it was only athletes from the Bahamas. We are hoping that it can be, to some extent, extended to athletes from other Caribbean islands, And then, finally, I don't know what you folks thought about my commentary regarding Cuba and the Dominican Republic and others participating in the CARIFTA Games. Do you think that the time has come where we should, if we truly Caribbean and a true reflection of the Caribbean, a true picture of the Caribbean in competition, that there's no reason why Haiti is there, but athletes from the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico and Cuba should not be competing. If we have athletes competing from Belize, which is Central America, why not have Cuba and the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico? We have at the, and remember, it's a championships, even though it's called CARIFTA Games, that is under the auspices of NACA, North American, Central American, and Caribbean Athletic Associations. Okay, well, and recapping what Sir Austin Seeley said, you're not really reinventing the wheel, not really replicating Central American games or anything like that. So, but basically a true representation of the Caribbean, having them involved at that level. Yeah. So what do you think about those Cubans and them? Do you think that, for, not for Grenada per se, but there's talk that the Jamaicans may figure that the Cubans may dip into their medal counts, the medal tally. Richard said, we are the best host in the world. Let us export hospitality. We are unbeaten. I would agree with that. And people always give us credit for our hospitality. So there's no reason why we shouldn't. And I'm saying that it should be a lasting legacy, that after hosting the 2024 CARIFTA Games, that folks should be saying, I want to come back to Grenada. I've never, or those who have never would say, hey, this is my opportunity. I want to come to Grenada. Or those who would say, Grenada always give us the best, so I wouldn't miss Grenada. That should be there. And then when you go to bid, those federations should be saying Grenada is a worthy contender and worthy of hosting. I think they should participate. This would only make it more competitive. Hazel says, I agree, but school pride is ineffective, especially in schools, is in effect. The way that athletes have to do multiple track events hours apart just for points so their school can rise up the ladder. Some athletes hardly have gas in the tank or with limited recovery time. And for the love of the game, they should. Yes, that's referring to Cuba, saying for the love of the game that they should participate. I just think out of the true reflection of the Caribbean, that's my belief, that the Cubans should participate. Well, the Cubans, Dominican Republic, and bearing in mind that Cuba has provided a lot of assistance to the Caribbean to develop their sports infrastructure to some extent and their capacity, human capacity. A lot of our physical education teachers, coaches have been trained in Cuba. Jamaica, for example, owe a lot to Cuba because one of their colleges. Hazel, you helped me. You attended that college in Jamaica for a period. It was actually set up. It was a gift to Jamaica. Okay, yeah, it was a gift to Jamaica, and so certainly I think that we should try to embrace the Cubans in our track and field competition. Yeah. So I would support the Cubans participating, and I'll hope that even if it means starting at a invitational level in terms of the Cubans participating, having the Cubans and the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico participating, just as how you had the Special Olympics in an invitational segment. Probably start with something like that. Give them the opportunity to participate. But it's something that the organizers can relate to the NACAC, and NACAC can probably look at and decide, well, whether they want to incorporate it, what are the cost factors, all these sort of things, but we have to start thinking outside of the box. We have to start thinking outside of the box. And I think sometimes we are challenged by the same people with the same ideas, hoping to do the same thing and probably hoping to get a different result. Yeah. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you very much. I do appreciate always your comments, your involvement in this discussion, and I look forward to your continued participation. Next week, God's willing, we should have another program, and I'm hoping that you can join me, and looking forward to your usual participation. Until then, I want to encourage you to continue supporting our sportsmen and sportswomen. Give them all the support that's needed, not just the one time, as we call it, the one fling, support. And then after that, all is finished. Until the next time, we want to continue supporting our sportsmen and sportswomen. I didn't say our track and field athletes. I say our sportsmen, our sportswomen, and even our administrators, our coaches, all those involved in sports. We want to continue encouraging them, because, by the way, mainly most of our, barring a few, most of our administrators and coaches and people who are involved in sports in Grenada are volunteers. It's done on a voluntary basis, unlike other places where it's a full-time, it's a career, So I think we need to continue supporting these people. Thank you very much, Hazel. Thank you, everyone. Haran and Chenny, as well as Rudian, my co-host. Richard, nice seeing you and hearing from you, as well as Michael Lambert. I hope you enjoyed the CARIFTA Games, as well as the Intercall, and our usual folks, Edwin, Sam, and Theo, and Roger. Thank you very much for being part of our program, and look forward to you joining me next week, God willing, for another edition of TalkSports, our Saturday Sports Special.